Hello, brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. Some men don't walk away from the world. The world slowly loses the right to keep them. There's a moment, quiet, invisible, almost surgical, when a Sigma man realizes he's done trying to fit into a society built on filters, facades, and people who treat authenticity like a suspicious substance. And once that switch flips, he doesn't rebel, he doesn't argue, he doesn't make a dramatic announcement. He simply disappears from the circus and lets the clowns keep performing. Here's the suspense. Modern psychology now notes that individuals who reject group conformity are often more perceptive, more emotionally resilient, and far less susceptible to manipulation than the average person. In other words, the Sigma man doesn't fail to fit in. He sees too much to participate. While most people spend half their lives auditioning for acceptance, Sigma men eventually sit back, observe the chaos, and think, yeah, I think I'll pass. With the same energy you use when someone offers you food that's definitely suspicious. This is why they stop chasing belonging in a world that feels mass-produced, emotionally rehearsed, and intellectually underwhelming. Not because they're broken, but because the world is. And today, you're about to discover exactly why Sigma men never fit in, and why they stop trying altogether. Number one, they don't compete for attention. Attention competes for them. Sigma men have a presence that doesn't beg, bribe, or bargain for recognition. It's subtle, effortless, and impossible to ignore, even if they're sitting quietly in a corner. While most people expend energy trying to be seen, heard, or validated, a Sigma doesn't need to prove he exists. His confidence isn't loud, it's self-contained, calm, and unwavering. The energy he carries naturally draws focus, but not in the way that screams, "Look at me." Instead, people are unconsciously pulled toward him, like a magnet they didn't realize was there. This makes his social position completely different from everyone else's. Most people hustle, flatter, or manipulate to get noticed. Sigma men never do, yet somehow the room still gravitates toward them. The fascinating part is that this creates a quiet chaos in social dynamics. People who rely on attention to feel important suddenly feel insecure around someone who doesn't compete for it. They try to measure him against their own shallow benchmarks, popularity, humor, charm, but none of it sticks. The Sigma doesn't rise to their games. He simply exists outside them. And the harder others push for attention, the more naturally he becomes the center without trying. It's not arrogance or ego. It's pure self-sufficiency. Because attention competes for him, Sigma men are rarely misunderstood. They are misinterpreted. People assume he wants something he doesn't, or that his calm detachment is a challenge, when in reality, he's completely indifferent to the usual social hierarchy. This dynamic creates fascination, curiosity, and sometimes discomfort. People are drawn in, but they can't control him. They see him as elusive, magnetic, and untouchable, but he doesn't care if anyone reaches him. In essence, Sigma men turn the social world upside down without ever raising a finger. He doesn't follow trends, chase recognition, or insert himself into cliques. Yet his very presence commands attention, not because he demands it, but because he exists in a way most people simply cannot. The room notices him, not the other way around. And that's the rare, quiet power of someone who doesn't compete for attention, yet somehow becomes the most magnetic force in any environment. Number two, they distrust any environment where authenticity is punished. Sigma men have a radar for environments that punish honesty, and it doesn't just make them uncomfortable, it sets off an automatic withdrawal. They notice when people smile while hiding agendas, when politeness masks manipulation, or when the truth is treated as a liability. In most social circles, saying exactly what you think, acting on your own principles, or refusing to conform can earn criticism, exclusion, or ridicule. A Sigma man doesn't participate in this subtle economy of control. He sees the hidden costs of pretending, the mental toll of performance, and the constant pressure to conform, and he refuses to pay it. To him, environments that punish authenticity are toxic, and staying in them is pointless. This doesn't mean Sigma men are difficult. They are selective. They measure energy, intention, and psychological rules like a strategist analyzing a battlefield. If the rules reward deception, gossip, or posturing over truth and competence, he steps back. He doesn't fight for acceptance because the stakes are not worth it. For him, the emotional investment in an inauthentic environment is like trying to build a house on quicksand, exhausting, unstable, and ultimately meaningless. The result is that Sigma men often appear distant or detached. People misread this as arrogance, coldness, or disinterest, when in reality it's pure self-preservation. He isn't avoiding people, he's avoiding the energy drain of maintaining a false self. If telling the truth makes people uncomfortable, if showing competence threatens fragile egos, or if being real creates tension, he doesn't waste effort to fit in. This instinct makes Sigma men rare. While most people bend, negotiate, or mask their reality for social survival, he chooses a higher standard. Environments must respect honesty, integrity, and independence, or they lose his presence. And in a world that often rewards the opposite, that choice makes him untouchable, ungraspable, and profoundly magnetic to those who recognize value beyond appearances. In essence, Sigma men don't just leave fake spaces. They remove themselves from the game entirely, silently proving that authenticity cannot be bargained for or compromised. Number 3, they've mastered the rare art of emotional neutrality. Sigma men have an unusual and almost surgical control over their emotions. While most people are pulled every which way by anger, jealousy, excitement, or social pressure, a Sigma man maintains a quiet, steady center. This isn't coldness or detachment. It's a deliberate mastery of self, an understanding that letting emotions dictate actions often leads to chaos, manipulation, or unnecessary conflict. He feels deeply, but he chooses when and where to reveal it. And he never allows someone else's drama to hijack his mental state. This emotional neutrality makes Sigma men unpredictable and magnetic at the same time. People around them are often thrown off because they expect reactions, triggers, or emotional swings, things that are usually used as social levers. But a Sigma doesn't give them the leverage. He doesn't overreact, he doesn't get provoked, and he doesn't play along with the silent games most people rely on to feel superior. That creates a subtle tension. He is respected, feared, and envied all at once because he can navigate situations without losing control, and most people have no idea how to deal with someone who isn't reacting the way they expect. This mastery also gives him freedom. He can walk into a room full of chaos and remain unaffected, watch manipulative people expose themselves and leave without a trace of emotional fatigue. It allows him to make decisions purely based on logic, observation, and self-interest, rather than social pressure or emotional impulse. The world, which thrives on emotional reactions, drama, outrage, competition, finds someone like this hard to categorize. Most importantly, emotional neutrality isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about not letting them control your life. A Sigma man experiences emotions fully, but selectively. He knows when anger, frustration, or desire are useful tools and when they are liabilities. That awareness, that inner calibration, separates him from everyone else. He doesn't just exist outside the emotional chaos of the world. He thrives in it silently, untouchable, and fundamentally unshakable. This rare skill is part of what makes him so misunderstood, so powerful, and so undeniably untouchable in a world addicted to reactions. Number 4, they are too self-contained to be easily influenced. Sigma men operate from a core so solid that external pressure, social norms, expectations, or subtle manipulations rarely penetrates it. Most people absorb influence like sponges, adjusting opinions, behavior, or values to match their surroundings. Sigma men, however, maintain an internal compass that is both invisible and unshakable. They don't seek approval, follow trends, or bend to peer pressure. Their thoughts, decisions, and actions are guided by self-determined principles rather than collective expectations, which immediately sets them apart in any group. This self-containment often creates tension without the Sigma doing anything overtly confrontational. Groups rely on subtle social cues and conformity to maintain cohesion, and when someone doesn't respond in predictable ways, it causes discomfort. People instinctively try to read the Sigma, test his boundaries, or pull him into alignment, but their efforts fail because he's psychologically ungovernable. Unlike most individuals who seek consensus, he evaluates situations independently and acts according to his own reasoning. The result is that the Sigma man often appears enigmatic, even intimidating to those around him. His indifference to peer pressure is misread as superiority, arrogance, or aloofness, when in reality, it's a reflection of his internal freedom. He cannot be swayed by manipulation or empty gestures of social power, which makes him both respected and misunderstood. This unshakable self-containment also grants him rare clarity. While others are distracted by gossip, competition, or social expectations, the Sigma can observe, analyze, and act without emotional interference. He doesn't just move through social spaces, he navigates them on his own terms. The psychological independence of a Sigma man is both a shield and a weapon. It protects him from manipulation and simultaneously unsettles those who try to predict or control him. In essence, his self-contained nature is the invisible force that separates him from the crowd, making him untouchable in a world built to influence, control, and conform. Number 5, they can sense artificial energy like a threat signal. Sigma men have an instinctive sensitivity to fake behavior, and it hits them with the same intensity that a sudden alarm would trigger in someone else. They don't have to study a person for long before they pick up on mismatched expressions, exaggerated enthusiasm, forced politeness, or social masks that don't fit. Their mind processes these small inconsistencies instantly. It's not paranoia or overthinking. It's a natural filtering system that alerts them when someone's energy doesn't match their intentions. What makes this ability so powerful is how automatic it is. They don't consciously analyze every person they meet. The detection happens beneath the surface, the same way a computer automatically rejects corrupted data. Once their internal system flags someone as artificial, the Sigma man withdraws, not dramatically, not rudely, just silently and completely. Some people think he's being unfriendly or dismissive, but he's actually protecting his mental space from a type of energy that drains him. Counterfeit personalities require effort to navigate. They come with guessing games, emotional inconsistencies, and unpredictable motives. Sigma men find these things mentally expensive. When someone's words and actions don't align, he feels like he's running unnecessary programs in the background, wasting mental bandwidth he'd rather use for things that actually matter. This is why he often appears distant in groups. He's simply filtering out the noise of people who aren't being real. And because society often runs on pretense, fake smiles, polite lies, exaggerated confidence, Sigma men naturally stand out. They don't understand why people waste so much energy pretending, and they won't participate in it just to blend in. Their withdrawal isn't about shyness, it's about efficiency. Being around artificial energy is like trying to breathe in a room with recycled air. It's uncomfortable, stifling, and impossible to ignore. This built-in alarm system is one of the reasons Sigma men seem detached, selective, or hard to impress. They're not judging, they're protecting their peace. And in a world where authenticity is becoming rare, this instinct is both a survival tool and a quiet superpower. Number 6. They refuse to trade their identity for social permission. Sigma men have an unshakable commitment to themselves that most people simply don't understand. While the average person constantly adjusts, edits, or suppresses aspects of who they are to fit in, a Sigma sees this as a subtle but real betrayal of the self. They don't care about popularity points, social applause, or temporary approval, because no external validation is worth compromising their integrity, values, or individuality. Even the smallest concession, a 5% bend in character just to belong, is enough for a Sigma to walk away without hesitation. This refusal isn't born from pride or ego, it's rooted in clarity. Sigma men understand that the cost of fitting in artificially is far higher than the temporary comfort it provides. Shaping yourself to meet someone else's standards creates internal friction, erodes self-respect, and leads to an invisible debt that builds with every compromise. For most people, this is invisible or ignored. For a Sigma, it's a glaring problem that cannot be negotiated. What makes them so striking and often misunderstood is that this self-contained authenticity naturally alienates others. People who are used to the give and take of social approval can't comprehend someone who won't adjust, soften, or conform. They may label the Sigma as distant, stubborn, or even arrogant, but in reality he's simply unwilling to rent out parts of himself for the sake of belonging. This unyielding adherence to identity allows Sigma men to operate on a level of freedom most people never experience. Decisions, relationships, and interactions are all measured against one internal standard. Does this align with who I am, or does it compromise me? If it compromises, it's rejected, no debate. The Sigma doesn't just exist in a social landscape. He moves through it selectively, untouchable, and fully sovereign over his own identity. In a world where social permission is treated like currency, Sigma men remain wealthy in the only thing that truly matters, themselves. They may be alone, but they are never lost, never diluted, and never bought. That rare commitment to self over approval is what sets them apart, and why they can never truly fit in a world that asks for masks in exchange for acceptance. Number 7. Their perception runs deeper than the social bandwidth of others. Sigma men see the world on a level most people don't even know exists. While casual social interactions are full of small talk, surface-level politeness, and unspoken rules for the average person, a Sigma picks up on layers underneath it all. He notices the tiny contradictions in someone's words and actions, the subtle shifts in body language that hint at hidden motives, and the insecurities people try desperately to mask. These micro-patterns, invisible to the majority, are like signals to him, data points that reveal more about a person than their own performance of normal ever could. This hyper-awareness often makes ordinary social settings feel shallow or almost painfully simple to a Sigma. Conversations that revolve around gossip, small talk, or superficial displays of status are exhausting because he instantly sees their futility. Most people operate on a low-resolution version of reality, focused on appearances and social validation. The Sigma operates on high definition. He reads between the lines, senses tension before it's expressed, and understands the unspoken dynamics that govern group behavior. That kind of perception is isolating because very few people can match it or even recognize it. It also makes him exceptionally difficult to manipulate. While most individuals are swayed by charm, flattery, or subtle pressure, Sigma men detect underlying intentions almost instinctively. They see when someone is trying to gain an advantage, test boundaries, or mask incompetence. This makes him selective about who he trusts, engages with, or invests energy in. He doesn't waste time on people who operate on superficial levels because he's already read the real story hidden beneath the surface. In a world obsessed with appearances and performance, this heightened perception is both a gift and a burden. It allows Sigma men to navigate complex social dynamics with precision, avoid unnecessary conflict, and understand people on levels most will never access. But it also isolates them, because the depth at which they perceive reality makes typical social environments feel incomplete, shallow, and almost alien. Sigma men live in a world within a world, a reality that most others are blind to, and it's one of the reasons they can never truly fit in. Number 8, they don't speak. The performative emotional language society demands Sigma men communicate differently than the majority of people, because they don't play by society's unspoken emotional scripts. Most social groups run on a kind of emotional theater, exaggerated reactions, forced laughter, over-the-top enthusiasm, or performative concern. People reward each other for playing the part correctly, and those who fail to do so are often seen as distant, awkward, or cold. Sigma men don't participate in this theater. They speak and act with precision, clarity, and honesty, expressing emotions only when they are real and necessary. This can make them appear detached or unfeeling to those who measure connection by volume, gestures, or dramatics. When a Sigma doesn't mirror forced excitement at a party or feign interest in gossip, others instinctively label him as aloof or antisocial. They mistake his authenticity for lack of emotion, failing to see that the Sigma is simply not wasting energy on performative displays that don't align with reality. For him, authenticity trumps popularity every time. The refusal to mimic the expected emotional script also grants Sigma men a kind of quiet power. In conversations, people quickly notice the difference. He doesn't exaggerate, manipulate, or dramatize, so his words carry weight. When he does express emotion, it's noticed because it's genuine, not manufactured. That authenticity commands attention, even if he isn't seeking it. This disconnect from social norms also reinforces why Sigma men rarely feel at home in typical groups. Most people are unconsciously training each other in emotional conformity, while the Sigma refuses to be trained. He doesn't compete for approval, doesn't need to fit the emotional mold, and doesn't sacrifice honesty for comfort. In a world addicted to performative behavior, this makes him rare, misunderstood, and powerful in a way that most people can't comprehend. Sigma men live outside the stage. They observe, interact selectively, and communicate with integrity. Their emotional clarity may seem cold to the crowd, but it's precisely this clarity that keeps them unshakable, untouchable, and fundamentally ungoverned by the expectations of others. Number 9, they outgrow environments faster than environments can understand them. Sigma men evolve mentally and emotionally at a speed that leaves most social circles struggling to keep up. While others may stay comfortable in familiar routines, outdated values, and predictable social hierarchies, the Sigma continuously learns, adapts, and refines himself. He notices when the energy around him no longer aligns with his growth, whether it's friends clinging to stagnation, workplaces enforcing outdated rules, or social groups thriving on trivial drama. To him, staying in those spaces feels suffocating, like trying to breathe underwater. Most people misinterpret this process. When a Sigma leaves a friendship, drops out of a group, or walks away from a long-standing environment, others assume rejection, conflict, or disinterest. In reality, it isn't about them, it's about his evolution. The Sigma didn't abandon anyone. He simply grew beyond the constraints that once kept him in place. His trajectory moves faster than the social structures around him can adapt, which makes his departure inevitable and, to outsiders, inexplicable. This rapid evolution is both a blessing and a source of isolation. Sigma men gain clarity, skill, and self-reliance far earlier than most, but it comes at the cost of remaining misunderstood. They may leave behind people who can't match their pace, ideas that feel restrictive, or systems that reward compliance over innovation. Yet this isolation isn't painful for the Sigma. It's natural. He doesn't cling to environments that hinder growth, because stagnation is more dangerous to him than solitude. Over time, this pattern creates a life lived on a higher plane of self-awareness. Sigma men continuously seek spaces, people, and challenges that match their evolving consciousness. Old connections and environments fade, not through conflict, but through natural divergence. The Sigma doesn't need approval or understanding to grow. He grows regardless, leaving behind a world that can't contain him. In essence, Sigma men are always a step ahead of the environments they occupy. To them, leaving isn't a choice. It's the logical result of growth. People may say he left, but the truth is far more profound. He simply evolved beyond what the world could offer. Number 10. They reject environments built on emotional debt. Sigma men see relationships and social environments with a clarity that most people lack. They notice the invisible contracts that govern so many friendships, the unspoken expectations, the emotional IOUs, the subtle pressures that say, "I did this for you, now you owe me." For most, these exchanges are invisible or accepted as normal. For a Sigma, they feel suffocating, transactional, and unnecessary. He doesn't want favors balanced, smiles returned on schedule, or friendships governed by hidden debts. He wants freedom, authenticity, and mutual respect without invisible strings attached. Because of this refusal, Sigma men are often misunderstood. People interpret their independence as coldness, distance, or indifference. They see someone who doesn't play the game of obligation and assume he lacks empathy or commitment. But in reality, the Sigma is not avoiding connection. He's avoiding captivity. He understands that social bonds that operate on debt rather than understanding are fragile, draining, and ultimately unsatisfying. By rejecting them, he preserves his energy and protects his mental space from manipulation or resentment. This instinct extends beyond friendships into work, social circles, and even family dynamics. Anytime an environment relies on guilt, obligation, or silent leverage to maintain relationships, Sigma men quietly step back. They aren't shirking responsibility. They are choosing autonomy over a performance of social currency. Their presence in a group isn't about compliance or reward, it's about choice. The result is a paradox. Sigma men are simultaneously highly social and deeply solitary. They are capable of intense loyalty, meaningful connection, and unwavering support, but only when the relationship is free of invisible contracts. Anything else is filtered out, no negotiation required. This is why they appear distant to people who measure value by obligation. But to those who understand them, they are the embodiment of freedom, self-respect, and uncompromising authenticity. Sigma men refuse to be anyone's debtor, and in doing so, they redefine what connection can look like: genuine, voluntary, and untethered by expectation. That rare independence makes them magnetic, misunderstood, and untouchable in a world addicted to emotional leverage. Number 11. They don't tolerate psychological noise. Sigma men have an acute sensitivity to social chaos, and they instinctively filter out what they consider unnecessary or toxic energy. Loud egos, fake positivity, subtle manipulation, and competitive gossip aren't just annoying, they're irritants to their mental and emotional system. Unlike most people who absorb, react to, or even feed off this noise, a Sigma recognizes it as wasted energy and an invisible drain on focus, clarity, and peace of mind. He doesn't argue, confront, or perform theatrics to manage it. He simply withdraws. This intolerance isn't about being difficult or antisocial, it's about efficiency and self-preservation. The Sigma's attention is a resource he guards fiercely. When the surrounding environment is noisy, performative, or manipulative, every interaction becomes a cost. He instinctively separates himself from it, creating mental space to think clearly, observe without bias, and act deliberately. For him, exposure to psychological noise is like static on a high-definition screen. It obscures reality, wastes energy, and slows progress. Because of this, Sigma men often appear distant, mysterious, or aloof. People mistake his retreat for disinterest or superiority, but the truth is simpler. He refuses to expend his energy on distractions that do not serve purpose, truth, or growth. He doesn't need to justify his withdrawal, explain his absence, or engage in drama. The environment that tolerates noise will never hold his attention, and he won't stay to validate it. This ability to tune out the chaos also amplifies their clarity, independence, and influence. By removing himself from mental and emotional clutter, a Sigma can process situations at a level others can't reach. He observes manipulation, reads intentions, and anticipates social dynamics without interference. In a world addicted to attention, drama, and shallow interactions, his selective presence and intolerance for noise make him not just rare, but quietly powerful. Sigma men live in a state of calm control, untouchable by the irritants that consume everyone else's energy. Number 12. They don't have the desire to impress, only the desire to understand. Sigma men operate on a level that most people don't even notice because they aren't playing the same game. While everyone else is busy performing, posturing, and chasing approval, the Sigma isn't concerned with how he's perceived. He doesn't try to impress, conform, or signal status. His focus is on understanding the world, people, and situations with clarity. This singular focus gives him a presence that is quietly disruptive. He destabilizes the usual social hierarchy simply by existing outside it. Because he doesn't compete for attention or validation, others instinctively notice him. The people around him may be scrambling to assert dominance, gain approval, or maintain control through social posturing, but the Sigma doesn't participate. He observes, deciphers motives, and absorbs patterns without interference. His indifference to impressing anyone acts as a kind of mirror. People are forced to confront their own insecurities, neediness, or performative tendencies without him ever pointing them out. This also creates a sense of intrigue. People are drawn to someone who doesn't chase approval because it's unfamiliar, rare, and almost impossible to manipulate. The Sigma's absence of ego-driven performance makes him magnetic and enigmatic. His energy isn't wasted on superficial displays. It's concentrated on genuine understanding and strategic awareness. Unlike most, who measure social success by the reactions they provoke, the Sigma measures it by the insights he gains. He values comprehension over applause, truth over theatrics, and observation over performance. This is why he can walk into any room, remain calm, and instantly shift the dynamics without saying a word. The Sigma man's lack of desire to impress isn't arrogance, it's mastery. He doesn't compete in a game he refuses to join, and that refusal gives him quiet power. By seeking understanding rather than validation, he disarms the entire social structure around him, creating influence without effort, presence without noise, and authority without approval. Sigma men exist on a frequency that the ordinary world struggles to comprehend. They move through life guided by principles, clarity, and self-contained strength, untouched by the currents of social expectation, emotional manipulation, or superficial validation. While most people spend their days performing, conforming, and chasing approval, Sigma men quietly observe, understand, and act with precision. They don't fit in because fitting in requires compromise, performance, and surrender of authenticity, things they refuse to trade for temporary acceptance. Their presence alone disrupts hierarchies, exposes pretense, and challenges the fragile comfort of conformity. This is why Sigma men often appear enigmatic, aloof, or even untouchable. They withdraw from environments that punish honesty, demand emotional theatrics, or operate on invisible contracts of obligation. They don't compete for attention, they don't seek approval, and they don't respond to manipulation. Their independence looks like rebellion, their authenticity like defiance, and their emotional neutrality makes them impervious to the chaos that consumes most people. Yet beneath the surface of this detachment lies a mind of extraordinary depth, a mind that understands more, perceives more, and navigates life with a level of clarity and freedom that few can grasp. Sigma men are not flawed, misfits, or outsiders. They are simply operating on a plane that society isn't ready for. Their rarity, their ability to disengage from the unnecessary, and their commitment to self-over-approval are what make them magnetic, fascinating, and quietly powerful. In a world obsessed with validation, performance, and social currency, they are the rare few who refuse to participate in the noise, choosing instead to live deliberately, authentically, and untethered. If this resonates with you, if you've ever felt the pull of independence over conformity, or the clarity of living on your own terms, then you already understand the Sigma way. To dive deeper into the psychology, power, and hidden truths of Sigma men, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps uncover the truths most people are too distracted to notice, and together we'll continue exploring the world through the lens of the extraordinary.